So, who is all here? We have blinding light. Okay, we'll go past the blinding light. Oh my. Okay, how many are teachers, instructors, professors? Oh wow, great. Okay, administrators. Okay, good. College presidents?
We're all in balance.
What?
They have people to do their work.
What else? What have I missed?
Counseling.
Counseling? Okay. Anything else? Okay. Mortimer Adler once said that a lecture, you defined a lecture as a process of taking what's in the notes of the instructor and putting it in the notes of the student without passing through the mind of either. Okay? So I really prefer not to lecture. Okay? When I taught on campus, I would just start the class and open it up to questions, and the questions would get us through the outline, and I'm fine doing that. I'm very comfortable doing that. So please interrupt me. Now this is designed as a 2.5-hour session. So if you want the whole picture, stay for the second session. If you want half the picture, that's all you'll get in the first session, or something less than that. I want to save some of the time toward the end for problem solving, but we can do that within. So what I'd like you to do is think of situations where you need to help someone restore balance and maintain balance, either in a classroom or in a facility, whatever situation it might be, and where there might be a difficulty there. And we'll put our heads together and I'll demonstrate some principles that help move that forward in a direction. So we can, my goal, my philosophy of teaching is that I am your employee. Okay, essentially, I'm here to serve you and to help you understand this material. But I have, like, maybe roughly 40 years of experience if you fill it all in. If we add up this room here, we got well over 400 years of experience plus. I haven't done the math. So we can learn from each other. So please, if you see something that doesn't make sense, ask about it. Maybe there's a better way to see it. Let's all learn from it. Okay? None of this is fixed. It essentially, for the most part, does not come from textbooks or training. It's just what I found to be consistently effective over time in both my counseling and my teaching. So it's just what works and makes sense. Questions so far? I worked with a man who had been in seclusion for 30 years. He had been in restraints for 3 years, tied up in a straitjacket. They opened the door and put food on the floor, and he ate like a dog. And this was in the mid-'70s. I was working in Care Regional Health Center, and he was sent to another facility because we had a psychiatric unit, and because the state came up with a mental health code, and it was illegal to keep someone tied up. But every time this guy had human contact from the age of 12 when they locked him up until his current age of 42, he just attacked. Whoever was attacked went at him. And he was a little guy. He was like maybe that tall, probably 110 pounds, 120 pounds, just wiry. But just went at everything. So they didn't know what to do with him. In the process of bringing him into the building, we actually, we had 700 staff at the time, and they went him out and got the 4 biggest, strongest men, okay, to get this guy in, because they were expecting a handful. And there were all windows in the hallway at this height, and he put out 3 of them with his feet. And the 4 big guys holding down. So he was pretty powerful. Okay? And I didn't work on that unit, but the director asked me to come in because I've worked a lot with people with problems with violence. So he asked me to come in and check them out. So I opened the door. Well, first I spent an hour getting the balance, okay, to make sure that I was coming in without any of my own fears or tension or anything like that.
Excuse me, I'm getting a couple of handouts. Pretend I'm not here. No, I'm just sneaking behind you.
Actually, there are extra handouts. We'll have them in the back, so if you want some to pass on, feel free. And before I forget, all of the screens, if I use them, I've got a new system that I'm kind of playing with, and I don't know if it's going to work or not. If it doesn't, I'm going to bail on it. But I've got all the screens from my notes that will be posted on my website too. So your website is on there, and I've got some updated screens on that. So everything you have here is available to you, so you don't have to take notes. Okay? Don't write anything down. I'd rather have you thinking than writing. Okay? Let's not get where we're at right now. Getting more definitions that begins. Okay, so back to the story. So I opened the door and I walked in and I stood like this. This is just a position that I found work. Okay. Actually, in the state of Michigan, the trainers came around and told us to go on this. That didn't make any sense at all. So in this position, I'm in balance. Okay, I'm not building any tension. Okay, my body is essentially in neutral, and I can't throw a punch with any power at all. Okay, I can also move real quickly if I need to get behind someone and put them in basketball and charge. So this is the position that I just found work. And I walked in, and nobody knew anything about this guy. I mean, you can't do a test on someone, you know, who's going to attack you. So they didn't know if he understood language or anything. Okay, you know, if he was retarded, schizophrenic, no idea. Okay, so I'm standing there, and he's pacing back and forth. And we had him in our old seclusion room, but we, you know, didn't know what else to do. They were using it as a storage room, but that's where he was. So I opened the door. Okay, so I'm standing there, and he's pacing, and I just start talking. I say, I'm Bob, and they asked me to come and meet you, okay, and I work with people who get upset, and, you know, they asked me to come and talk to you, and just kind of, you know, introducing myself, and I noticed that he probably had an excruciating headache. I'd never seen that much tension in someone's face before. I didn't want to duplicate it because I'd give myself a headache. Okay, so it just, and so I picked up on that, and I thought, wow, I wonder if you've got a headache. That's a lot of tension. And I said, you know, I know something about headaches, and I work with that. And sometimes I can help people get rid of headaches. If you want to sit down, I can see if I can relax your necks and shoulders and maybe it'll help your headache. And he sat down. So that was the first indication that he understood English. Okay. And so he sat down, and I worked on him a little bit, had absolutely no effect. And he didn't respond at all. And I sat next to him and made some kind of one-way conversation. And when I couldn't think of anything else to say, I got up and walked out. And he never looked at me or responded at all. And the nurse who had admitted him, she knew his whole history. She said, he's never done that. He's never not attacked. And the really cool thing is a 19-year-old staff, I'd never seen him before. He just finished his training. He had no experience. And he said, that's nothing. And he walked in and did the same thing. He didn't do the stuff that didn't work, okay? But he sat next to the guy and he talked to him. Okay, and actually the director gave him the full-time job of working with that man. And he could work his own schedule whenever he wanted, put in 40 hours, but just work with him and hang out with him, and the guy never did anybody. The sad thing for me was that, that he was sent back to his other facility because that's where his zip code was, so he didn't continue working with this young man. But he put his finger exactly on what worked. Nothing. We both came into the room with nothing, in balance. Okay, without fear, without tension, without expectations. For 30 years, every time he had human contact, it was with people who had a lot of tension and a lot of fear and were ready to do battle, and he gave it to them where they could handle. Okay, twice in one day, two guys walk in balance, and he doesn't respond. That's the power of balance. Okay. When we're in balance, we can be ourselves. And our culture is such that I've worked with many people who've never known themselves because they've been unbalanced from childhood on. Because we're always pushing, and it seems to be an ethic that to work harder and to strive and to try. But see what I just did? I tensed my hands. I tensed up. Okay? Tension always works against us. Tension always creates problems. Okay? It's in a sense, it's the muscles working against themselves. This is going to be a whole separate. Okay, so a couple of definitions that I would have put in your handout if I thought of them before it was printed. Okay, essentially balance involves tension, physical, mental, and emotional tension. And it interferes with our function. It interferes with our capacity to be fully and completely ourselves. And that would be the single goal that I would have for this workshop, is that you can, by practicing these techniques and applying what you learn, become fully and completely yourself. And in 36 years of counseling, I've never met anyone who didn't do that and liked what they saw. There isn't anyone who said, yeah, now that I'm myself, I don't like them very well. It doesn't happen, okay? You find gifts, you find potential, you find the joy that is really part of our life when we're moving slow enough to appreciate it. One of the things I do early in my stress management class online is I call it moments of joy. And this is before they even read the textbook. Okay, it's after assignment 1, which is just an introduction assignment. They don't read the textbook yet. And it's extra credit, so they don't have to do it. But for 5 days, you have to post one moment of joy, and it can't be something spectacular, like I got a raise or I won a lotto or something like that. It has to be something really simple. Seeing a baby smiling, seeing a leaf fall, or something, just the breeze in the air. Okay, and the students, they get extra points for it, so they start doing it. Every day they post them, and then they read all of the other posts, and it's amazing how life-changing that is. Okay? They have to slow down, and at the end they have to write, to get the extra credit, they have to say, okay, what's different after 5 days? And some people have said, this is life-changing. Oh my God, I never knew there was so much beauty in my life. Okay? But they've already started slowing down just by paying attention. Just by looking around them, and it's always there in every situation. And we'll get into that. Even near death, even in torture, there is room for hope, room for seeing something that's beautiful. There's a story about a man, Jacques Oosterhout, who was my French isn't very good, but he was a Frenchman during World War II. And actually, I think he started when he was 13 or 14 with the French resistance. He started his own resistance because they wouldn't let him into the adult resistance, and the kids were more effective than the adults because the Germans didn't expect the kids to be having resistance, so they were doing all kinds of cool stuff. But he was blind from the age of 9. He was blinded in an accident in the Germans. He was totally blind. Okay? And he got captured. Okay? He was still a teenager, under 20. And he was in a river going down, so he was in like a dungeon, okay, in the basement somewhere, being tortured by 4 Nazi experts at torture. Okay, people whose greatest gift was knowing how to inflict pain, and they were doing it to him. And he had this sense in his mind that he was freer than they were. Okay, because they were locked in doing what they were told without thinking about it, and they were diminishing their own humanity by what they were doing. He was maintaining his humanity by not turning his face. And he smiled. Okay. In the midst of torture. We can all do that, but we have to slow down to get there. We have to slow down body, mind, and emotion. Okay? Just a little comment about stress. There are all kinds of definitions of stress, and it gets really confusing. People talk about good stress and bad stress. That's because stress is a real neutral definition of demand on the body, so lifting weights would be good stress. Okay, but stress that we think about is the nasty stuff. And the reason it's nasty is because it builds tension. Tension is the enemy. Tension is the problem. Okay? And so what we want to do is to be free of tension. Okay? First to get rid of it, and then to keep it away. To recognize when it comes and let it go again. I did not have a chance to do my warm-up that I normally do, okay? And I'm hoping, and it might be a little bit difficult, but I'm hoping that we can just do this together, okay? And I'll put it as part of the story. But this is, I go through a little routine before I present, but Windows rebooted my computer after I had everything set up. And then we had a lot of extra people coming, so I didn't get time to get away to do this. But let me put it in a context, and if you would like to try this while I'm doing it, I'll demonstrate it first, and then you can clear some space, but you can do it right in your chair, and all you have to do is bend over and stand up. Okay? So when I worked at Carroll, my office was next to the room. They had 700 residents, and I had 150 of them on my caseload in 4 buildings. And there was one building where there were 26 men, and they sent everybody who had problems with violence to that building. Okay? So none of the other buildings had any problems. We had them all. No matter what their level was, they just sent them there. And as you can imagine, people, we were having 30 to 35 incidents a week where staff had to go in and restrain someone to keep them from hurting themselves or somebody else or breaking up the place. Okay? And the phone was in a cage, and they had to take their key out of their pocket and lock the phone call me, and it's like, don't bother doing that. I mean, you're focused anyway. Pound on the wall 3 times. I'll hear it, and I'll know you need help. Okay? Here's what I would do every time I would hear that pound. Okay? So I'm working at my desk. Actually, it's typewriter, but I have a computer back then. Okay? And I would get the call, or I'd hear the pounding. Okay? So they need immediate help. Okay? There was another psychologist one time who got a call from the office and came running down the hallway and ran in the door and got his jaw broken. That would help her at all. This is what I would do. Turn this light. Okay? You won't have to do this when you practice it. No, just do it. I'm going to turn this way because this chair has a slant. It's better for my back. There might be a chair that hits the wall. You can hear this first. Take my key and run through, open the door, and walk in. After a while, that was enough. Just walking in the door was enough to restore calm. Calm undermines tension. I've seen that in every situation. I work with lots of people with problems with violence. I've done it in my head. I work with people who are ready to, guns loaded, and they're going to go blow some people away. Okay? Calm undermines tension. Tension will escalate tension. Like the guy with the broken jaw. Okay? Tension will escalate. That's what happened to the guy for 30 years. But calm undermines tension. Okay? You can always do that. You can always do that. This exercise, I'll explain how and why, what I did later on, and we'll give all a chance to practice it. Do you want to practice it now? Want to go? Okay. So I'll talk you through it. Okay? Now, I'll just give you the short version here. It involves breathing down as deep as you can to the base of your lungs, okay? Moving the diaphragm down and then breathing out. And the rhythm is fairly critical. We won't worry about now. Just take a deep breath and totally let go on the exhale. Each time you exhale, let yourself drop a little bit more. So we'll take about 5 or 6 exhales to get down to the floor. Okay? And just go as far as is comfortable. If your back is tight or something like that. And make sure you're letting your head go. If you're holding your head up, okay, you're putting that tension in your head. If you have long hair, your hair should fall over. Okay? And if you're feeling any kind of a glitch in your back, just go up a little bit, and that's as far as you want to go. Go till you stop feeling. Okay? Okay. And now very slowly, after you do slowly, start bringing your feet, your weight into your feet. And you're still over your chair, so you can sit down at any time. The head is hanging over. And you should be looking under the chair if you're all the way down. If you're looking at your feet, you're tensing your neck. Okay? And then gradually feel your feet under you. Your weight is centered on your feet, behind the balls of the feet, just in the center of the feet. Come up as you breathe in from the lower back, and relax as you breathe out. Very slowly. Just come up a few inches, and relax as you breathe out. And you can go back down into the chair if that's more comfortable with you, or you can stand as I do. Okay? Okay. So this is just a simple little thing that you can do at the beginning of class, if you like. Okay? Or anytime you feel tension building up. Questions about that? Comments? Anything?
Overall, how long should it take?
You know, whatever time you spend is worth it because you'll be more efficient from that point on. Okay? I mean, it's just, yeah.
It's like yoga, and so it's
Same
suppose you're
principles.
doing like this.
Yeah, same principles. Yeah, yeah. Basically, in this position and in the position where you're hanging over, your body is in neutral. When you're hanging over, you can't tense up. If you tense up, you'll fall on your head, and your body won't let you do that. Okay, so that's why that position works. Okay, because it just undermines. Yes.
Okay, the scientist wants to know why does that work?
The sinus?
The
If you have,
scientist
oh, scientists.
why that works.
Okay. when we tense up,
Okay.
okay? It's an interesting thing, okay? You never hear, we become uptight. You never hear of someone being downtight. Okay? So what this does is all the muscles that are, you have to let go of them to hang over or you'll fall. Okay, if you tense up in that position, you'll fall. And so gravity is pulling on those muscles and giving them a bit of a stretch. Okay, and then as you come up, you're setting them in place without tension. Okay, so you become what we call grounded. Okay, grounded means you're in touch with the moment. Okay, and you're aware of what's happening. When we're in tension, we're always in the past or the future. Okay, and back and forth. Okay, sometimes we're just. Okay, but the present is where we have to start, whatever it is we're doing. Okay, to get where we have to go. And if we're thinking about where we have to go, we're not in the present. Okay, so grounding, actually the physical act puts you in the present. Yes.
Sometimes during a random tense moment where things do escalate, it's going to be really hard to do that for.
Actually, well, yeah, for a minute or two, yeah.
I mean, when somebody, like a student is, you know, really upset about a test question and starts to escalate really high in front of the class, I can't sit down on my chair. And
No, but what I can do is this. Okay, this is tension, this is neutral in my breathing. And I'll explain in detail how and why that works, okay, the physiology of that when we get to that point.
Sometimes we don't have time either. If there's like an urgent situation, you have to,
yeah,
you already get
good part of my
tense.
career was dealing with those situations. I was the one who got called when someone was acting out in violence, okay?
So you need
And so,
time to get to that calm.
well, with a guy for 30 years, yeah, I had the time, so I took it.
Yeah.
Okay, if I've got the time, I'll take it. But even at the clinic, I worked in Houghton Lake at the Federal Qualified Health Center. When there was a code 88, which means they need help right away, there's someone potentially violent, people would go running and I would walk like this. Okay, and I don't know how many incidents there were, less than a dozen in the 12 years I was there, I think less than 1 year. Never once was there an escalation or a problem by the time I got there. Okay, but if I go running, now I've lost what I have. What I have is my capacity to calm me. And if I'm running, I've thrown that out the window. So it's like, here, have some water. Okay, it doesn't help. Okay, so, but in a minute, you can do this. Okay, you can stop the buildup of tension, and then you can be aware of your breathing as you're doing it. So you're actually changing from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system by doing that. Okay, and I'll explain that in more detail. Any other questions? But that's very helpful. Appreciate you asking me. Okay. So, as I mentioned, we're going to focus on practical and understanding. So please don't hesitate to ask questions and see how this goes here. And just to kind of give you a sense of what we're going to cover today, and I know the people in the back can read this, but these are my notes, okay? And so this is what we'll follow, and this will be on the thing, and you'll have that. You don't need to see that now, but that's what I'm looking at. And, oh, here it is. This is your handout, okay? Oops. This is on your handout. That sums up basically what we'll be talking about, so you can refer to it. And does this look confusing to anyone? No? Really? Yes? Okay. Yeah. I didn't hope it might really, because I didn't want to confuse you potentially. But actually, no, that's not a problem, because someone did some research and found that if you become confused, you understand at a deeper level later. But if you always kind of know or you follow it, then it just becomes incremental. So this can lead to everything. So don't worry about being confused. This sums it all up. Okay. Most of and all the techniques we're going to be learning, and it's body, mind, perception. It's all in there. Okay. And we will look at that screen again when we do the summary. Okay. Okay, so balance, like I said, allows you to be completely yourself. It's freedom. Frees your mind to see more clearly, to think more clearly, okay, to be creative, to see a larger picture, okay. Frees your body with movement, okay. There's research that shows that athletes who are under stress are more prone to injury, okay. And I worked with a lot of people who are in physical therapy, at a physical therapy unit in our place, and getting the tension out of the way prevented a lot of injury. And I'm going to go down and watch them sometimes because I see how they were tensing up, and then we can change that. Okay, so that's a significant thing to keep in mind. And we're going to talk about perceptions as part of mental balance. Okay, and perceptions make all the difference in the world, and that was the reason behind that Moments of Joy story in terms of how when you see a larger picture, you have more options and have more information, so you can deal with things much more effectively. Okay, so being out of balance puts us in crisis mode. And let's look at crisis mode here. Okay, this is a program called Scaffold, and I started playing with it about a year ago, and it's something that you might want to check out. It's you can get it for free. It costs $15 if you want to download it. literatureandlatte.com. I think it's on the handout somewhere. If not, it's on the website. But this is. I've been teaching online for 15 years and haven't really been presenting since then, so I just got a pointer. Never had a pointer before, so this is the first time that people have seen it. My cat has seen it a few times. Okay, so what we're looking at, what happens when we build tension is that body, mind, emotion, body, thought, emotion, and perception go into crisis mode. Crisis mode is survival mode. Okay, it's like being chased by a bear. Okay, so when you're afraid, okay, natural fear. There's different kinds of fear. We'll talk about that when we get to emotions.
Oh, there it is.
When you're afraid, okay, your mind focuses on the threat. Okay, it becomes more narrow. Your body builds tension so you can run or fight. Okay, that works for animals. It doesn't work very well for humans. Okay, in human situations, we need to think to solve problems, and the reaction most of the time creates more problems than it solves. Okay, so the body tenses up. The energy goes to the muscles, but we hold it back. Okay, because it doesn't work. And the mind becomes more narrow. You see a smaller picture. Okay? I saw a deer in our front yard a while back, and I was standing in the window, and he was kind of looking at me. Okay, and I was looking at him. And actually, she was a doe, and I just kind of made a movement, and she just focused right in on me. Okay, I just feel her focusing right in on that. My dog came trotting around the side of the house and got closer to a deer than he ever had in his life, because she was so focused in on me and she lost her peripheral vision. Okay, that's what happens to us. Okay. We don't take in information. It's all about survival. Okay. So everything that's not related to survival gets put aside. We don't need it. Okay. It doesn't matter if you digest lunch if you're being chased by a bear. Okay. Because you'll become lunch for the bear. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you're tired, if you're being chased by a bear. You keep going. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're paying attention to what you're stepping on or where you're going if you're being chased by a bear. You just need to get away as fast as you can in whatever direction you can. That's what happens to us in crisis mode. Okay? The problem is that none of these things work for us in dealing with our everyday life. None of them. As a matter of fact, they take away our capacity to deal with it. Is that mine? Oh. This thing's been crazy today. It booted by itself, downloaded Windows Update without me even knowing, after I had everything all set up. Okay, so here's what happens. Oops. here's what happens in crisis mode, okay? It's like you're being chased by a bear. Now, look what I did. See what I did? Okay? Now, what do I have to do here? See, my legs are locked. Okay, my shoulders are up. I held my breath. Go back to neutral. Okay? Go back to neutral. So in crisis mode, that's what we do. And if you build up tension over time from exhaustion, okay, from not getting enough sleep, you still get the buildup of tension. Okay, you have the same effect. Your mind recognizes, your brain recognizes the buildup of tension, narrows its focus, sends more energy to the muscles, kicks in the stress hormones, okay, so you can keep going, because if you're being chased by a bear, okay, you can't stop and rest, okay, so the stress hormones keep your sympathetic nervous system charged up, keep your energy going, so you can keep on going, and it just keeps on going. So the bears are in our lives, too many of us, much of the time, even when we sleep. People don't get adequate sleep, they're tossing and turning and having dreams that are creating tension, and they wake up tense, okay? And the tension always works against us. So let's get a little scared here. Okay. What? Yes? Okay. Didn't take long, okay? But that's something, if you recognize, now a bear is pretty obvious, okay? Then you're going to go into tension mode, especially if it's a real bear, okay? But, okay, if you're sitting in front of your boss and you're getting called for something, you walk in kind of like this, okay? You lock your knees, okay? Okay, that's real different than this, okay? And you can do that anytime. And the key is to learn to recognize this and to learn to recognize when this becomes this. The breathing becomes really shallow. Okay, so the breathing is full and deep. Okay, so let's get to the specifics of the body. Now, I didn't leave that screen up there about crisis mode, but that will be on the website. So if you want to see how all those links work and how it all fits together, you can look that up and look at it in more detail. And that's kind of why I wanted to share these with you. So I'm going to okay, so here's what happens to your body, either when you're being chased by a bear or if there is a buildup of tension over time. Same effect, okay? One just takes longer than the other, okay? Let's start with the body. We're going to go through body, mind, which will include thought and perception, and then we'll go to emotion, okay? And that'll kind of cover the content thing, and the rest of the time we can do problem solving. But we can stop and do problem solving anytime because this is your time and I'm looking for you. Okay, so if you have a question, interrupt me. If I forget what I was saying, there's enough people here that you should be able to remember it. If you can't remember it, then it probably wasn't worth saying anyway. So we'll move on to something else. Okay? Okay, so what happens to your body when you see the bear or when you build up tension for not enough sleep or what's happened there, whatever's going on? What's the mechanics of it? How does it work? Okay? It has to do really with your autonomic nervous system. That's the key. To understand that, you can look through a lot of this. Okay? Two parts of the autonomic nervous system, you all probably know way more about it than I do. Okay? And I'm probably oversimplifying. Sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system activates your muscles. Parasympathetic does your maintenance work. Okay? They work opposite each other. They're never both on at the same time. You don't eat a big, huge meal and go out and run 5 miles. Okay? You won't handle the digestion or the running very well. Okay? If you do that. Okay? So if you're going to eat a meal, okay, then give yourself time to digest. Go running later. Okay? So what happens in the stress response, or as tension builds to a certain point, is the sympathetic nervous system gets stuck on. Whenever you are tensing the muscles, the sympathetic nervous system is working. Okay, so mine's going to move, because I'm doing this tension stuff now and then. Okay, that's okay because it's work recovery and I can go back to it again. Okay, But when it builds up over time during the day and gets structured into my body even, okay, so stress that lasts for hours, days, months, unfortunately for many people years, okay, then you need some extra help. Okay, you can't maintain it, and that's where the stress hormones come in. Your stress hormones keep you running away from the bear when you're tired. Okay, so the function of the stress hormones is to keep your sympathetic nervous system going, so you can keep running away from the bear. The problem is that continues to feed the sympathetic nervous system and gets it stuck on. Okay, so that becomes what life is about. That can define our life force. Okay, and that can be really costly. Okay, there can be a lot of things that happen when we get to that point. I worked with a man, or a woman, I'm sorry, who was sent to me from was discharged from the hospital. They thought she had a heart attack. Turned out it was a panic attack. This was back in the 90s, before computers. And she had worked in the same job for 17 years. And everything that came into the factory and went out of the factory had to cross her desk. And everyone was constantly at her because they needed this and they needed that, and this had to be there and this had to be there. And she was just going like that and going like that. And she was working 12-hour days and sometimes 6, 7 days a week. And finally her body said, "That's enough." They thought, fortunately, it wasn't a heart attack. Okay, so she learned this stuff and told her to take at least 3 weeks off. She took 3 weeks off. And we scheduled a session, and after her first week of work, she came back for that first session. She had been in the job 17 years. That first week back to work in Dallas, she saw something that saved her over an hour a day. She saw a way to cluster the work and to organize it that was just obvious that she never saw for 17 years. Because she was in crisis mode. Okay, let's get it done. Come on, react. Let's go. Okay, it's not, okay, I'm going to do this start. That's wasting time? No. That is an incredible way. That's how we solve problems effectively. By stopping and stepping back and looking at it. The problem is, in crisis mode, we don't do that because our body is charging us forward. We've got to act. We've got to do something. Okay? It's really a pressure to do something. And it's pushing us and driving us. Okay? So what do? How do we deal with that? I don't know why the screen keeps on turning. Are these helpful, these screens? Yeah, somebody keep doing them? Okay. Because I'm not following them, but I also want to put them up there because, like I said, they're on the website, so you can use them as a review. Okay, so what works? Well, we've already practiced this a little bit, but I'll give you the details here. The right vagus nerve is about the size of your thumb, wraps around your esophagus, goes through the center of your body. Activates most of the parasympathetic nervous system, feeds all your organs. Okay? The diaphragm is the bottom of the lung, shaped like a parachute. Okay, there's an opening in the diaphragm in the middle towards the back called the esophageal hiatus, and the esophagus and the right vagus nerve pass through that opening. Okay. What I found through observation, I first learned it in yoga, but the specifics I had to observe and kind of study up on. But what I found through observation is the rhythm of the movement of the diaphragm was key. Okay, 3 to 4 seconds up, 3 to 4 seconds down was the key to stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. You're actually stimulating the nerve that feeds that nervous system. Okay, so you bring the diaphragm all the way down, you let it come up. If you do it too fast, it doesn't work. If you do it too slow, you're using your muscles to control it, and it doesn't work. And this is viewing like thousands of people, really, clients and students. And even I worked with a guy who had a lung injury and was having panic attacks, and I worked with him in a stopwatch to lengthen his breathing. And when we got to 3 seconds, the panic attack stopped. Okay, so 3 seconds was a key for me. And later I just figured out, well, I'll just breathe with people, and then I can sense myself. Okay, if I'm not getting relaxed when I'm breathing in their rhythm, I'm going to drive. Okay, so that's a good way to practice this. Yes?
So when you're saying the deep breathing, and you said when you go, I have a question. Do you then teach like the abdominal breathing, the chest breathing, and out by the clavicle breathing? and
No,
the
it's
steps, and the
purely
step?
abdominal.
You didn't
Okay,
do
this
all
doesn't
the-
move at all. Actually, this tends not to work. This is a start. This is where a lot of people start, particularly people I would see in counseling who came in with a lot of tension, you know, panic attacks, PTSD, things like that. They would start, okay, and that's okay if the movement starts down here. So I bring the air to the bottom of the lungs, the diaphragm goes down, okay? That's the key. If I start up here, now I'm not moving the diaphragm, okay?
Well, in the yoga class, yeah, they teach the abdominal
Yes.
first, and then chest second,
Yeah.
and then out by the clavicle third.
Yeah,
And then
for this
you said then
purpose.
the opposite.
Yeah, that's a different function in yoga.
That's what I wanted to
And
say.
you know more about yoga. Yoga has a lot of advanced breathing things for different
Right.
purposes.
Right.
And actually, some of them, my understanding, is you'll create some tension and then you learn to not tense with it. Okay, but that's advanced. First, you have to get rid of the tension to be able to do that.
Okay, I just
But
want to know if they're the same or not. Okay,
it comes from yoga. It comes from yoga, but the specifics of how and why it works to restore balance don't go beyond that because people aren't ready for it. Okay? So, because what I found is this did not resolve symptoms. Okay, and anxiety was the easiest test because every symptom of anxiety in the DSM can be explained by excessive muscle tension. I've gone through it with a number of the doctors at the clinic. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's the particular abdominal that stimulates the
Yeah, I call it-
sympathetic nerve release.
Yeah, I used to call it diaphragmatic breathing, but I don't anymore because people do all kinds of things under the diaphragmatic breathing, including holding their breath, which is an advanced technique, okay? It's very helpful if you're at that level, but if you jump to that level before you're in balance, you're going to feel tension. It's just like if you do an advanced pose, okay, you can really hurt yourself. Okay, yes?
You know, I remember hearing something on a news report, you know, one of those morning news shows, a while back ago, that people who practice deep diaphragmatic breathing live longer.
Oh,
And
that
that
would make
must be
sense.
why.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're taking the pressure off your heart, your muscles are you know, more functional, and you're able to move more. I mean, your immune system is operating, okay? I mean, everything is doing its job, okay? So, I think I'll move the chair for a second. This is easier to learn to sit down when you're sitting down. Okay, can you all see me?
Yes,
I can stand up.
I can, thank you.
I was gonna
I
say-
answered yes.
Okay, it helps to lean back a little bit, okay? It's not best posture for your back, but if you lean back, what happens is your stomach and intestines drop a little bit, okay? It takes a lot of practice to do diaphragmatic breathing in this position. It's hard to learn in that position, okay? So just leaning back makes it easier, okay? And if you just put your hand just about where your diaphragm is and sniff, like you're smelling coffee brewing, okay, that's your diaphragm. Okay, now move your hand down a little bit and think of the air coming all the way to the bottom of your lungs as you breathe in, and then just relax as you breathe out. Don't worry about how you're doing it or what's happening, because if you think about and try to do it, now, see what I just did? I said try, and I tensed my hand, okay? We always tense when we try, okay? I can't not do it. I have to really train myself to do that. So you just allow it to happen. It's your natural way of breathing. You're just removing the obstacles. Yes?
Does it matter whether you're breathing in from your nose or from your mouth?
For this purpose, no. If you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, it helps your jaw relax. Okay, so, and there's other yoga reasons for doing that that I don't fully understand. But that's the benefit of that, but it doesn't matter. You can breathe through your mouth, your nose, however you can get it in. Okay. Now there are, yes?
I have a question about a sigh, a deep sigh.
Uh-huh.
Is that just a natural intervention that occurs subconsciously, but it's pretty obvious when you see somebody?
Let me show you a deep sigh, and you'll see what it does. Back in the bottom of the lungs. The next breath tends to be diaphragmatic. That's one of the tricks. If you can't do it, okay, you take one full exhale. You don't do 20 of them. Okay, you take one. vacuum pulls it down and moves the diaphragm. Just do that once, because that'll make your life better. Practice that a lot. But that's what that does. Yeah, thanks. Questions, comments? Did anyone feel a difference? Just yes.
So are you saying that the panic attacks are stimulated by the
Sympathetic overload. Sympathetic overload. I would get referrals to panic attacks because I had pretty consistent success, so I've seen hundreds. And actually, there was a woman who took my online class 2 summers ago. She had a 20-year history with panic attacks. She'd been on all of the medications, she went through all kinds of therapy. Her doctor finally just said, "This is who you are. You know, you're going to have to learn to cope with it." Okay. She read the book before the class. It was a summer class, and got it early. She read it like must have been in the spring, because she sent me an email the first day of class, and it said she had not had a panic attack in over a week, and she never had another one during the season. So, slow down and lighten up, letting go of stress and tension.
Is that in here?
Yeah, it's in there. I was going to bring some and give them away for people who asked helpful questions, but I didn't have enough, and I found, well, if I just give a few away, then people will
Are you
forget
the
that.
author?
Pardon?
Are you the
Yes,
author?
yes, yes. Just an aside on that, Amazon is real. I mean, I talked to Greenwood Press, and they were going to charge me $65, or charge students $65 for the book when I wrote it. It's a 1-credit class, and I just couldn't justify that. So I self-published it. It's called Good Enough Publishing. So it's a good enough book. Okay, basically. Not fancy at all. It's got a poem thing. But Amazon picked it up somehow, and so students are, buying it from Amazon. I have to ship it to them, but I have to drive 15 miles to the post office to send them one book. And now Amazon makes me fill out 5 screens every time I send them. Sometimes they order more than that, but I'm trying not to get too many to sell books, because I finally am putting it down print on demand and Kindle. So by December it should be available on then, and I've got a 20-some left, and there's a few, but I was hoping not to do another printing because I have to have a minimum print, and then I'm going to stuck with them. I'm not a businessman, okay, so I just prefer to keep it simple. So if there is a delay, I do have a number of chapters on the website, though. The chapters on describing this are on the website under anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So that's good. Other questions on this is important because it's the movement of the diaphragm that is key. It's a simple thing, but it makes a huge difference. There's also a video which turned out to be better than I ever expected, not in terms of the quality, because you sort of need it, okay? But there was a nursing student who volunteered to do it, and she did not act, okay? I tried to teach her the breathing the first way, and it didn't work. And I tried my best trick, my most common trick, and that didn't work. And I tried all the next tricks, so none of them worked until the last one. Okay, and that one was the only one that I use every few years, okay, with clients, okay? And that one worked. So you see a real example of it not working, and then finally she gets it. Okay. Is there anyone who has a situation where someone's starting getting out of control, or dental? Do we have dental? Yes, okay, good. I thought about this the last time I was asked to do a presentation at our dental thing, but it didn't work out. I had some back problems then, so. But I've been thinking about this. And using that diaphragmatic breathing, getting people started with that, even in the waiting room, or even sending them a link to the video on my website, and they could watch it before they come in, okay, so they could practice it. That's even better, okay? And you could make a video and incorporate that thing with instructions on it to help with that. And as long as we're on the topic, I'll just cover the other parts that made sense to me. I did have a crown removed, but I've been doing this stuff for 40-some years, so I wasn't a good test, okay, in terms of someone really stressed out. But I did this while I was having my crown removed. If you're in the chair, and I don't want to lean back too far because I might fall, okay, you're in the chair, and your legs are kind of out like this. If you press your legs down as you breathe in and relax as you breathe out, okay? Obviously there's a chair underneath my legs, okay? That rhythm, you can't tense up when you're pressing down, okay? That's the next step we're going to talk about in grounding, okay? So if you press your legs down as you're breathing in and relax as you breathe out, okay? And then the other part that's critical on that, and this is important in dealing with panic attacks, is people need a sense of control. Okay, so if you have a panic attack when you go into Walmart, okay, which was the big store where I work, okay, always go into Walmart with a plan where you can leave. So you always have a choice, okay? So I worked with a woman who had a phobia about gas stations. She couldn't pump her gas. She would always have a panic attack when she went into a gas station because one time while she was pumping gas, she had a panic attack. So now she had this association. Okay, so the instructions were, first, let's restore balance, get somebody else to fill up your car. Your husband will fill up the car for you. Let's let them do that, okay? Now you're in balance, okay? We got to deal with the other part of it, and that's control is critical. Some people say, well, you got to work through it. See, that's tense. Okay, you work through it, you're going to build up tension, you create a panic attack. Okay, some people will have the resilience to build through that, or they'll work up just to a level where they don't have a panic attack, but they're still building up tension. So it's not an efficient way to do it. If you have control, okay, then you always feel safe. Okay, you can let go of the fear. So go to the gas station, okay, and your husband fills it up. Or you can fill it up if you choose, or if you get out of the car and decide you don't want to fill it up, your husband will fill it up. Okay? She did that one time. She got out, she grabbed the thing, says, nope, I don't want to do it, got in the car, husband filled it up, fine. Next time she was fine, and everything was fine. That issue of control is critical. So for an dental office, I would have a signal, okay? When I raise my hand, stop. Okay? You're breathing, you're grounding, ready to go? Okay.
That would save us a lot of money in our program. We wouldn't have to use as much nitrogen oxide.
Don't tell your patients that.
I have a family member that has a phobia about hospitals.
Pardon?
I have a family member that has a complete phobia about hospitals and clinics.
Okay.
And this would be after like a 3-year battle with cancer. And
Okay. Okay, so we
And
understand.
so then you need to go to the doctor. So to get a referral to go for, because they said he has post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
So obviously to get him to the doctor, practically looking at some conflict, because it's like literally phobics will have a panic attack, turn white, blue, pass
Right.
out. Then he gets to the provider, and they look at all the scars on his chest and his abdomen from all the surgeries, and the first thing the provider says is, "Who tortured you?" So this
Yeah.
was like a year ago.
Okay.
And even with the new, what is it, Obamacare or whatever, you have to go find a provider and you have to get
Right.
help. And he literally will not do it.
Okay. It takes about on average, 2 weeks to restore balance, 4 on the outside. If you're regularly practicing the diaphragmatic breathing, and I'll show you the grounding in a minute, okay, and the number is 6 to 10 times a day. Okay, I've had people who restored balance doing it 4 times a day, but I've had people not make it under 4 and had to go up to 6. Okay, 6, I've never seen someone not restore balance within 2 to 4 weeks.
So you think you could do that and then?
Yeah, he needs to
work
restore
his way
balance
towards
first,
the-
and then work on going to the, I mean, obviously, if he has a critical event, he has to go and you just deal with it as best you can. You know, trying to use these techniques to keep the tension within limits as much as possible, okay? But first step is to restore balance. Everything becomes easier then.
So he could use the videos or?
Yeah, I'm just practicing it and set up a routine, link it to things you do every day, like when you eat, when you get up, when you go to bed, before work, after work, when you get in the car, before you get out of the car, when you turn on the TV during commercials. Just find things where you can make it a habit, okay? And
Well,
you'll
he's a
find.
teacher also, and so it's not like he's public or in
Yeah,
front of kids or
right,
other people.
right.
It's the association with anything medical
Right,
or dental.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Are we needing a break? Do you need a break? I'm fine, but does anyone need a break?
There is
Use
a
one?
break scheduled in 15.
Less than 15. Okay, well, I'm gonna, remind me to finish answering your questions, because I'm sensing people are kind of been sitting for a long time. Now let's go to grounding, okay? Because that means you have to stand up. Okay? Okay, so everybody up. Okay. Grounding, and I'm gonna get my chair out of the way so I don't trip. Remember I said in answer to a couple questions.
Go ahead, just go for it.
All tension is pulling up away from the ground. Okay, it's just a pattern, I don't know any research about it, but it's just a pattern that I've seen in every situation and never not seen. Okay, so the muscles pulled away from the ground are involved in tension. Okay, so what grounding is is put your body into neutral, okay? So that's putting your feet about the length of your hips apart, okay? And your knees are bent, and your pelvis is over your feet, okay? And then your pelvis, your feet are on the floor, okay? Your pelvis is over your feet, your spine is over your pelvis, your head sits on top of your spine, your shoulders hang from your head. There's no tension, except what's there habitually, okay? And what you'll do in this position is find the tension that's there habitually, because it'll hurt, okay? And people say, oh, I did this grounding and now I'm sore. The grounding didn't make you sore. The grounding did was help you become aware of where the tension is. Because when a muscle is held in tension, we lose awareness of it. There needs to be movement for perception, okay? If we don't move our eyes, we don't see. Actually, we're always moving them a little bit. And if I could stand perfectly still, which I can't, you wouldn't see me if you couldn't move your eyes, okay? Movement is necessary, same thing with movement. So that's how we become, we get like falls asleep or something like that. Okay? So once you're in this position, the simplest thing to do, okay, is just to bounce down. Okay? And the reason I do this is because bouncing down is exactly the opposite of tensing up. Okay, so you're using the opposite muscles. Every muscle has an opposing muscle or set of muscles, so you're activating the other muscles, and the muscles that tense up have to let go. Okay, so you just bounce down. Okay? And if you really want to get into it, we're going to start up. Okay? Because you're really working those opposite muscles. Okay, it's not up. Okay, I'm not going, it's always down. Okay? Okay, this is a hard floor, so careful on your knees that you don't take it too far. Now the next is similar to what we just did with the in the chair, but it's in a standing position, and I'll demonstrate it first.
Yes.
Okay? Okay, so I start here, and it helps to do this with a breath. So I get the diaphragm, and I let my head drop. And I'm going to do this about twice as fast as I would recommend just to save some time. Every time you breathe out, you drop a little further. And my head is looking straight down. I can see ahead of me. See I'm tensing my neck? Doesn't matter how far you go down. But right now, I'm looking at the lectern behind me. If I see my own feet, I'm tensing my neck. Okay, so you let that go. And you go down as far as is comfortable, okay, and then you hang there until you feel like it's enough, and then you come up. When you come up, you breathe in, and you relax, and settle in the ground, and you breathe out. And doing that 2 or 3 times a day helps you to resolve the patterns of tension, helps you become aware of the patterns of tension, and makes it easier for you to ground whenever you need to. Okay, so the less tension you have, the quicker you can get grounded. Okay, you've got a whole bunch of tension, you're going to have to work at it. So practice is really important. Any questions about grounding? Okay. This can also be a hands-on technique. I can demonstrate that later if someone wants to see that. If I work with people who have severe impairments and talk them through it. Hands-on way to do this with children. Yes.
So you said to restore balance, you're doing this standing posture?
Yeah, this is the physical balance, yeah. So the grounding and the natural rhythmic breathing. Those are the 2 parts. Okay, go ahead and sit down. Do what you want to do tomorrow. So we're done at 11:15?
11:15.
Okay.
And those of you that haven't signed tonight, you'll have to sign in again for the second part too, but make sure you sign in on the.
Have you ever done this technique in a nursing class before a test?
Pardon?
I'm just wondering if.
No, but my students have.
Okay.
And they consistently say that they do better on the net. Did I give you the paper on for my students? Did I show it to you? Yeah, there we go. Okay. My students right now are practicing this. Yes?
We had an instructor that did this in our classes before tests all the time. The students at finish had her walk them through and do the things ceremony with all their family and friends. Because they talked about how much that really helped them.
Oh, good, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're not learning when you're under tension, okay? You don't learn when you're getting away from the bear, okay? And so doing it before tests and actually before any class, or in the middle of a class, like we just did, yes?
So what if we started incorporating this with our young children at preschool, kindergarten?
Great.
Breathing and grounding.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how.
Yeah, start with a 2-year-old.
Eliminate.
They're naturally grounded,
Yes.
okay? But you can, and you can be gorillas, okay? You just wait, grounded, okay? Actually, I had a preschool when I was in graduate school, and when the kids were starting to get a little too up, okay, I'd call them in the middle of the floor, and we all become gorillas. And we would settle down. Really? Okay? It would settle them right down. Because the tension is building up because they've been sitting too long or doing whatever it is too long. That's a quick way to do it. And I work with some teachers, both in my classes and clinically, who've reported back that their students do significantly better when they incorporate this into the classroom. Okay? They do breathing and grounding before the tests and everything. But my students right now they have a 10-day assignment. I'll give them a month to complete it, where they have to practice 4 techniques, these 2 and 2 others, which I'll give to you in the next session, a specific number of times a day for 10 consecutive days. Okay, so they can do one at a time over the month, or they can do them all in one 10-day period, however they like. These are some of the comments that the students have made. I feel more like myself. I feel more relaxed, calm, and happier. I am way more calm and better able to cope with stressful situations. I can take a step back in situations where I would have blown a gasket beforehand. I don't feel so edgy or frenzied and can get more accomplished. I would have to say that I feel like I have more energy and more time to get things done, as well as more relaxed. I've been more patient with people who are around me and more happy instead of short-tempered with my boyfriend and family. I feel as if a big weight was lifted from my shoulders. I feel much more healthier. I actually feel as if I can take time doing things now. I don't feel as if I'm always in a rush. I was able to pause for a moment, de-stress, and make a better judgment call in a stressful situation. I have more energy, too, for longer periods of time. Instead of freaking out and allowing the tension and stress to overtake my body and my thoughts, I was able to stop it in its tracks and move forward in a more positive direction. My job is very mentally demanding and can get extremely stressful in the blink of an eye. These techniques made me become aware of when stress was starting to overtake my body and mind and reverse the effects. Yes?
We have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. Questions? Yes?
Are you okay with us, like, putting your websites on the website that you use for students?
Sure.
Students
Yeah,
can
I
use
think
that
if it would be
for
helpful to them,
students?
sure. Yeah, no problem. I would appreciate it if you would do that. I think the more people we have in balance in this world, really, the better world we're going to have.
Yeah.
Okay? Quite frankly. Any other thoughts or questions? Let me just give you some other. Okay. Yes.
Maybe you're going to address this, but as a counselor, I see a lot of, at a community college, I see a lot of students, it's like socially acceptable to be in stress.
Right.
And so, I don't know if we're seeing more of that, or how do we help them understand that just because it's socially acceptable doesn't mean it's beneficial.
Yeah, and there are people who feed that, okay? There's someone who did a TED Talk who came up with an idea that stress was good again. And Hans Selye, who was the original guy who came up with the term stress, Paul talked about good stress and bad stress. So it's in all the stress management textbooks. The problem is the concept of good stress isn't helpful. I've yet to meet anyone who's told me anything about how that concept was helping them to improve their lives. Okay, and Selye defined stress as a demand on the body. So lifting weights was a stress to him. Okay, and Kelly McGonigal defines stress as anything that requires you to adapt. Oh my God, that's life. Okay, that's totally meaningless. Okay, and she also cherry picks her research and makes conclusions that, if you go back to the article, that they didn't the actual authors who did the research would not have made it, would not make it. Okay? So there's a push saying that some stress is good, and companies like it. Okay, because pull together some good stress here. Let's get more done. The bottom line is they don't get more done. Okay, the Business Roundtable compared 40 to 60-hour weeks. Okay, they had people doing a similar job. Okay, large enough numbers, so they had some good statistics. Similar job. Some of them went to 40 weeks. Some stayed at 60 weeks. Within days, the people working 60 hours, their productivity was going down. Okay. Within 2 months, the people who were working 40 hours had produced more than the people who'd been at 60 hours in less time. Okay, that extra productivity is an illusion. Okay, it's I don't know where it came from, but it's not valid. Okay, it's not. It doesn't make sense. And not only does it make sense, it doesn't work. And there's all kinds of other research. Working 55 hours increases your risk of stroke by 33%. Gallup did a survey, 12-year survey, 1 million full-time U.S. workers. 70% of American workers are disengaged from their job. They don't really care what happens or what they do. They're not fully involved in their job. 70%. 20% of them are actually working against their employer and trying to undermine things and create problems and drama and stuff like that. Okay? And they estimate that costs $550 billion a year.
We're not done with the first part yet.
Pardon? Oh. The U.S. Army, okay, they train people for crisis mode, okay, and how to deal with it. They did some studies in Germany. They had people, there were some problems in a flight. In this research thing they gave them the illusion there were some problems in the flight, and they asked the soldiers to fill out their wills, okay, and their cognitive ability in filling out the forms was way down, okay. As you can imagine, yeah. These people are trained, okay, to deal with crisis mode. They had to go through a test of emergency procedures, but they thought it was a real incident, and their memory declined by 1/3. Okay, and these were radio repairmen who were trained to repair things under battlefield conditions, and what they thought was live combat took them 2 to 3 times longer to repair the radio. Okay, so there is no good stress. Okay, it does not help us. It only gets you motivated because of the component of fear, and fear is the absolute worst motive. Okay, and when you get rid of stress, procrastination tends to disappear. You get rid of tension. When you're in balance, then you see clearly, and you either see a reason to do it or a reason not to do it. Okay, if you're pushing yourself and you're saying should, then you're going to resist that, and then you get into procrastination, and there's tension involved. Get rid of the tension, and procrastination tends to disappear from my experience. Any questions? Okay, so the next session we're going to talk about 2 parts of the mind, thought and perception, and then we're going to talk about the nature of emotions and emotional tension and how to resolve that, and then we've got time, I think, for some more problem solving. So think of any problems, okay, see if you can stump the chump, okay, come up with one. Thank you.